I want to just open by saying a few words of thanks, especially to not just the legislators in this building who did a great job, but also to the many staff members. There are hundreds of people that help make this building and all its functions run on behalf of the public, and they deserve our thanks and credit. And so I just want to say thank you to all the staff members in the building and outside the building as well who make this possible. I have characterized it as a historic session. I think it was a historic session. It was the first time that Republicans and Democrats had a full and robust discussion of education and created significantly new and more opportunities, significantly increased funding. So education, number one. Number two, advancing the gas line. That was significant now that Alaskans have that opportunity to move forward into real engineering, real design work on a gas line. Third, second year of reducing spending dramatically and changing the course of spending for decades to come, paying down that unfunded pension debt, taking on that debt ourselves and moving that money into the pension trust funds instead of leaving it for our kids and great-grandkids. So on those three counts, I'm very satisfied with the work these legislators did. I think they've done a good job. They had a fulsome discussion of all those issues, and I'll let you take the questions. Bob.
Thank you, Governor. Bob Tkach, Legislative Digest and Laws for the Sea. Are there any bills that are on your must-veto list or likely to veto list? And in particular, have you had a chance to look at HB 140, Representative Brian Boat's bill on the regulatory review process? You seem to think your Administrative Order 266 from last year wasn't doing enough for regs review.
So I don't have any bills right now that I am looking at other than the real review process that it has to go through. Certainly I am supportive of streamlining our regulatory environment, making them more transparent, giving legislators a greater chance to have a say in those. I'm going to have to look at how the bill finally came out, so I really can't comment on the specifics. But at this point, I don't plan any vetoes. I don't have anything on my horizon that says that I'm going to do that. But again, there's a very rigorous legal review of every bill and the budget bill as well.
On 140, the bill as it came out says all boards and commissions and department regulations, with the exception of Fish and Game Board, RCA, and AOGCC, go to you to review whether they comport with the law they are based on before Lieutenant Governor. Are you prepared to do that process?
Absolutely. We do that anyway with the agency regulations. The governor has review authority. Lieutenant Governor has filing authority. We do that as a matter of course here. So other questions? Yeah.
Yeah, so what are your thoughts on SGR 23? It's the state-backed student loans. Seemed to have a lot of support in the Senate and the House, but didn't get through at the end. Is that something you were kind of hoping to see if it get passed?
I thought Senator Fairclough had some really good ideas there and created a new path of opportunity for our post-secondary ed students. So I'd be up for having the legislature entertain that again. Yeah.
Alexander Gutierrez, APRN. On the subject of specific bills, SB 108, your administration had a rewrite. It's the court view bill and the bill that would seal criminal records in cases where either someone was acquitted, the case didn't fully go to trial. Is that also something that you're going to take a closer look at?
I will. I had some concerns with the original SB 108, given the crush of business at the end, making sure that those priority pieces passed, especially education, gas line, that unfunded pension liability vote. I have not had a chance to look at the final version, but that will get a real strong review by me.
And just to confirm, the rewrite did come out of was something that was pushed by, back by your administration, correct?
I don't recall that for a fact, so I don't want to get bogged down in terms of which version until I get that complete review. So all I remember was I had concerns at the outset, but want to see what's coming. Pat.
Yeah, Pat Forgay, Alaska Dispatch. The Preservers pay down puts the money in up front, but then it extends the payment out into the future. Your original bill did that. The legislature went further with that.
I think they added about 3 years to the payment plan at that point, which
What's the cost for future generations?
by 3 years, yeah, especially, but it was much better than the path we were on, which squeezed the operating budget for future generations. So, 2 years from now, instead of paying $770 million in that annual payment, we're looking at mid $300 million worth of payment there. So right there's about a $400 million relief to the ongoing operating budget that doesn't just benefit us, but even in the out years, 10 years, 20 years out, it's still better than where we would have been under the old plan. So significant progress made there. That's going to be one of those unsung, unheralded pieces of legislation that make a difference here in this building as well as in people's lives. And both on the retiree side, retirees know that we took very seriously that our pension is a promise under our Constitution. We took that seriously. Our kids and grandkids know that we took the pressure off of education, public safety. We didn't take it off, but we certainly relieved some pressure from that growing operating budget in the next 20 years. And when you combine that with putting the state on an even firmer financial ground, maintaining that AAA credit rating and bond rating, Alaska has taken a significant step and a positive step in securing our financial future. All right.
Matt Buxton, Fairbanks Daily News Miner. On the issue of it being the 95th day, do you feel that the legislature extending like this is acceptable to get business done? Is the 90-day session broken? Is it something that we need to review? Or, I guess, in future years, what do you...
No, I support the 90-day session. I served it in 120-day sessions in the 90s. I think it was still 120 days when I was lieutenant governor. 120-day sessions get extended, go into special session. It's much better at a 90-day session when the issues are weighty enough for them to extend by a couple days. In this case, it's very clear to me that the leadership intends to focus on a 90-day session. I think I certainly support the 90-day session and will continue to. In this case, I gave the legislature 3 big issues and challenges ahead when I asked them to have that broad education discussion, advance a gas line, and deal with that unfunded pension liability. Either one of those, any one of those topics could have taken a session on its own, but being able to deal with all 3 was a monumental task that the legislature and our administration, I think, performed well with. Yeah.
Sunday night, you had a meeting with House and Senate leadership, presumably about the education bill. Can you kind of take us inside that meeting, what it was about? And were you disappointed that it didn't lead to, a more timely adjournment? No,
actually, I have been meeting with leadership on an ongoing basis and members on an ongoing basis throughout this entire legislative session. Certainly, at that point, the House and Senate did not have agreement on the structure or allocation of those funds. And, of course, we were all disappointed that, we could not reach agreement that night, but they also made the good decision that it was worth taking a few extra days for. It was the legislature's call to continue. I thought that was the right decision. And even in these last 5 days, I have had daily meetings with Senate President, Speaker, the leaders of the conference committee, for example. So it's been a very productive relationship, and I think Alaskans are going to see the benefit from this session. Bob?
Governor, on the Fairbanks refinery situation, the way it was explained in the finance committees, at least the Flint Hills refinery, or whatever it's being called now, can't succeed because it can't meet market prices for Alaska crude. So when we have to subsidize a private sector business, a refinery business, because it can't pay the price of its raw material, what's the long-term future for the state? And I guess the way things end up with the Senate's news conference was, should refineries, if they're so important, the state can't allow them to fail? Should they be treated more as public utilities than private businesses?
So the refinery incentive bill that I put forward recognizes the value of in-state refining to our national security as well as to our economy. Just as incentives for fisheries, as incentives for mining. They recognize the importance of those industries to our state. In this case, for example, having an in-state refining capacity in the interior to supply jet fuel to Eielson, that is critical to our national defense and us keeping those fighter aircraft at Eielson, and in fact expanding the military presence in Alaska. Additionally, having that in-state refining capacity is important to our economy, and being able to create the jobs here and have the fuel here, Alaska oil making Alaskan fuels, is something that as a state we do want to incentivize, just like we incentivize other industry avenues as well.
So in 3 or 5 years, when the term that bill runs out, if the finery still can't make it, is this just an ongoing situation? Or
well, I think the legislature will review it just like they do a film tax credit, or just like they do, oil and gas tax credits. I think that's the purpose of a sunset, is to bring it back for review among the legislators. Becky?
Governor, on the issue of education, the number, the $300 million, is a big number, and folks talk about it like a major investment. But there wasn't really in-depth discussion on what constitutes adequate funding. I mean, these numbers are put out there, but nobody really drilled down to see if this is going to do it. And I guess when you're looking at these numbers and when you're a part of talks with lawmakers, what was your gauge that made you feel comfortable that this is going to be good enough to help our schools continue to stand up?
My gauge is that these 60 representatives and senators represent the people of Alaska, and they get to use their best judgment, as I do in my role as governor. After hearing from the public, after studying all of these issues, they have to make a decision, and they get to make the decision. That's the way our republic works. I listened to some of the comments by the minority members who are disappointed with the level of funding, and I have to tell you that the compromise that was reached was important because it recognized the importance. Let me go back up. By putting forward the proposal, as I did, to split between the BSA, inside the BSA and outside the BSA, what that did is it validated the arguments of both sides. I asked them in my State of the State for them to come out of their entrenched positions. I said, I'm going to do that too, because I put that BSA in my bill, that BSA increase in my bill, as well as more opportunities for schools. Now, I asked legislators to come out of our trenches and have this big discussion. You saw that happen, but when you saw that $150 million go inside the BSA and $150 million go outside, what was happening was that the money inside the BSA recognized the validity of the argument of stability and certainty of money inside the BSA. The additional cash outside the BSA, for instance, in this first year, $85 million, about half of it, roughly 47 or 48 million of it, is really in the form of district cash. They can put that into teachers' salaries if they want to. There is a lot of cash available to do with what they want. And so the money inside the BSA recognized that stability and certainty. Money outside the BSA recognized the position that we need some change here. We need some innovation. We need more opportunities for our kids. And if you listen to a couple of the senators on the floor of the Senate, they were very clear that they want this discussion about education to continue. Well, that split of 150 inside the BSA, 150 outside the BSA, provided in 60 members' minds, a majority of 60 members' minds, provided adequate funding and combined with new opportunities. So it was a combination.
Just to follow up, the bill did recognize choice with charters and residential schools and correspondence.
Yeah.
But in terms of
I tried to treat public school students in charter schools equitably, like we would treat a public school student in a traditional neighborhood school.
But in terms of innovation, some of those provisions that were in the Senate bill, the innovation grants that would have been in the department, and some of the other things for technology were taken out. I think the term used was they weren't ready for prime time.
A digital teaching initiative was passed with $4 million, for example. I mean, that will open up, that will put new teachers, new classes into classrooms that don't have that right now. So, I see this glass as half full, not half empty. Yeah, Alexander.
So hitting $6 billion in unrestricted general funds is important to you, and that's the number you want to hit with your future fiscal plans. But part of the reason we hit that this year is because the money we put towards retirement was coming out of reserves.
Yeah.
Next year, when we go back to having that money in our operating budget, that's going to be an extra few $100 million. How are we going to hit that $6 billion figure?
Point, no, it's the $6 billion figure was this year. And here's what's happened. In the last 2 years, this legislature and I have worked to turn the corner on state spending. It's come from $8 billion down to $6 billion this year. And I recognize what you said, that next year there's going to have to be about $300+ million put back in for the new payment. But that's in contrast to the $770 million we would be paying. So there's a savings of hundreds of millions of dollars that this legislature and I have just agreed upon that will create savings for the people's money for years to come.
And I understand that, but with your fiscal plan, the goal is to have basically no growth. So are we going to see cuts in agency budgets that are greater than what we saw this year to hit the $6 billion mark again, or are we going to see something closer to 6.3, 6.4?
You got to stay tuned. We're just getting out of this session, so maybe give me a day or two, and I'll think of what we're going to know. Seriously, we addressed the single biggest cost driver, and the legislature joined in that, and you know that, on a bipartisan, unanimous vote across party lines. Legislators voted to pay down the debt and make lower annual payments. Okay, that's the biggest cost driver in the budget. The next biggest cost driver in the budget is Medicaid, in terms of increases in the operating budget. I appointed the Medicaid review group to meet during this year to put together a Medicaid reform plan with the idea that we ought to be able to slow the growth and perhaps even reduce the funding there while providing the services needed. So, one thing at a time. It's almost as if I'm not sure that folks here fully appreciate what's just happened when it comes to that unfunded pension liability. But it's as if the Congress and the President have just made the Social Security program sustainable. If the Congress and the President could deal with that significant an issue, that's what we just did here with the legislative vote to take care of this debt in the way we've done it. And I think that's an incredible testament to forward thinking and long-term thinking by our administration as well as legislators. Yeah.
How big a factor did the possibility of having to invest billions in 2019, 2020 play into the type of PERS and CHIRS plan that was initially proposed and then the one here at the end that was passed?
Help me understand.
How big a factor did having to spend several $1 billion here in 2020, should this LNG plan go to construction, how did that play into drafting this PERS and CHIRS plan, or was it a factor?
Well, of course it's a factor. It's a balance, because anytime that you take a significant amount from your savings account and move it to another savings account to pay a future debt, you're taking it off the table, so you cannot spend it. But what legislators here agreed to, as I did, is that it's worth it. It's worth it to pay down that debt so our great-grandkids don't have to. And we will continue to work to rein in spending and reduce it. We'll continue to set the priorities that the Constitution provides for. And with new production from what was accomplished last year in the years ahead, I think we're only going to see more revenue from more production, more jobs as well. Yeah, Vicki.
One of the items in the capital budget pertain to the contamination related to Flint Hills and potential cost share agreement with the state for Flint Hills and Williams. Why should the state have to contribute to that? I mean, it understands for a feasibility study to look at how the people of North Cole can be protected.
Yeah.
But why should the state have to contribute? And is it the anticipation that Flint Hills and Williams will only have to contribute $2 million each as well?
That's correct. So it's up to $2 million. And the reason the state is participating is because under environmental laws of our state and nation, the state is a potentially responsible party with Flint Hills and Williams. Now, I have to tell you, when it comes to allocation of that, we've made very clear that that even split does not reflect anything other than trying to get this study underway. It is not a meter or measure by which a future allocation of environmental contamination responsibility or liability will be apportioned. I just felt it was important that we move forward to get that study done to figure out how to bring clean water to the community in the most effective, efficient manner possible. Bob?
Governor, should the legislature have
Oh,
passed?
go ahead. This is the last question. We're going to go online, and I'll come back.
Governor, should the legislature have passed the minimum wage increase bill?
I was certainly supportive of it, but again, the legislature chose not to, and that's where we are. I'm fine with that.
Operator, can you take us off lecture mode?
We're ready for online question.
Yeah, ready for online questions.
There are no questions at this time, sir.
Okay.
Can you tell us more about this new revenue? When do you expect it? How much will it be?
We're gonna find out. We've got 13,000 plus barrels of new production. We'll see what's coming next year too in the next forecast. Yeah.
Last one for me. It seems like after every sports championship, as soon as the big season ends, they do a way too early prediction for next year. Any sense of what next year's session may be?
Way too early. You know, it's. I think it is too early to tell. I think it will continue to be. It'll continue to be focused on, for me, creating more economic opportunity for Alaskans, as well as those budget issues. Those are singular in nature. They are. The legislature could. I like to say that the Constitution only requires the legislature to pass a budget. It doesn't require them to pass any other laws, and so the budget issues will certainly play a front and center role. So I thank you. I'm going to call it a night and say thanks to you all for staying with us, including on a 4 a.m. morning. But appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.